It was April 10th, 2026. San Francisco, 4 a.m. The city was quiet. Most people were still asleep, completely unaware of what was about to happen. A hooded figure approached a residential gate in Pacific Heights, moving deliberately, like someone who had planned this moment for a very long time. He reached back money and threw a Molotov cocktail. The gate burst into flames, and then, just like that, he disappeared into the dark. That house? It belonged to Sam Altman, CEO of OpenAI. The man many people call the face of the entire artificial intelligence revolution. No one was hurt. But less than an hour later, the same man showed up at OpenAI's headquarters 3 miles away and started smashing glass doors with a chair. Security stopped him. He told them he came to burn the building down and kill everyone inside. Just let that sink in for a moment. Police arrested him immediately. His name, Daniel Moreno Gama, 20 years old from Spring, Texas. He had driven across the country with a single mission in mind. When they searched him, officers found incendiary devices, a jug of kerosene, a blue lighter, and something else. A handwritten document he'd been carrying all along. The document's title, Your Last Warning. In it, he called AI an existential threat to humanity and invited others to join his violent movement against tech leaders. Does this feel familiar? A person so convinced that a technology is destroying humanity that they're willing to use violence? This kind of story has actually happened before. Here's the thing about fear. When it gets big enough, abstract enough, it needs a face. And right now, for a lot of people, that face is Sam Altman. Think about it. AI isn't a building you can break into. It's not a machine you can smash with a hammer. It's code, servers, algorithms invisible, everywhere, and growing. So when people feel helpless against something that enormous, they look for a symbol. Someone to blame. Someone who represents the whole terrifying thing in human form. Sam Altman appears on magazine covers. He testified before Congress. He talks about AI changing civilization itself. Of course, he became the lightning rod for people's fear. And honestly, the fear itself isn't irrational. AI is already changing jobs. Real people with families, mortgages, and real anxiety are being displaced by software right now. Moreno Gama's manifesto listed names and home addresses of multiple AI CEOs and investors. This wasn't random rage. It was organized, targeted grievance against specific people. U.S. prosecutors said if the attack was meant to change public policy through violence, they would treat it as domestic terrorism. That word alone tells you how serious this has become. Sam Altman wrote a blog post hours after the attack. He shared a photo of his husband and toddler. He said AI fear is justified, but please, fewer explosions at people's homes. But here's the question that keeps nagging at me. Is this moment unique to AI, or have we seen this kind of panic, this desperate, violent resistance to technology before? Spoiler, we have. And the story takes us back 200 years as to northern England, to the sound of sledgehammers smashing textile machines in the dead of night. It's 1811. Britain is at war with Napoleon. Food prices are skyrocketing. Unemployment is surging. And something threatening is spreading across the country. Textile machinery? These machines could do in hours what skilled craftsmen spent years mastering. Stocking frames, power looms, spinning jennies. Each one meant a worker replaced, a family's income gone. The workers of Nottingham, Yorkshire, Lancashire, they weren't just angry. They were genuinely terrified. Their entire way of life was being automated out of existence. Sound familiar? Then, in March 1811, soldiers broke up a workers' protest in Nottingham. That night, the workers snapped. They went out into the darkness and smashed machines. Many, many machines. The attacks spread. Night after night, across a 70-mile stretch of northern England, masked figures crept into factories and destroyed equipment with giant sledgehammers they called Great Enoch. They called themselves Luddites. Their phantom leader? A man named Ned Ludd, General Ludd, King Ludd. He was the ultimate symbol of their rebellion. He was also completely fictional. Ned Ludd was a folk legend, supposedly a young apprentice who smashed a stocking frame in rage years earlier. The workers turned this myth into their war banner. Clever, right? They sent threatening letters signed Ned Ludd's office, Sherwood Forest, deliberately invoking Robin Hood. They were furious, yes, but they also had a dark, defiant sense of humor. Now, here's something crucial that most people get completely wrong about the Luddites. They were not opposed to technology in general. They were not anti-progress cave dwellers. Seriously, historians found that Luddites specifically targeted machines used in, quote, a fraudulent and deceitful manner by factory owners who slashed wages and deliberately bypassed labor standards. They wanted quality goods made by skilled workers earning fair wages. That was literally their entire demand. This was a labor rights fight, not a technology fight. That matters enormously. But the government saw it differently. Parliament made machine breaking a capital offense. The British Army, fresh from fighting Napoleon, was deployed to protect the factories at all costs. One mill owner ordered his men to open fire on protesters. At least 3 died immediately. Soldiers killed more the next day. This wasn't a labor dispute anymore. It was a killing field. By 1813, mass trials were held in York. Many Luddites were hanged. Others were shipped to penal colonies in Australia. And the machines? They kept running. Every single day. The Luddite movement was crushed within a few years. The Industrial Revolution didn't pause for even a single day. And here's the haunting part. The Luddites were right about several things. Let me be absolutely clear. The Luddites weren't wrong about the consequences. Mechanization really did destroy skilled trades. It really did devastate wages. Their fears were completely grounded in reality. A craftsman who spent years learning hand-weaving watched a machine do his job in a fraction of the time. His skill, his identity, his dignity, suddenly worth almost nothing. That's a real tragedy. Early Industrial Revolution was brutal for workers. Long hours, child labor, dangerous conditions, miserable wages. The workers' fears weren't paranoia. Those worst-case scenarios actually came true for millions. So the Luddites were half right. But here's what they couldn't control. The technology was already out. It was spreading factory by factory, city by city, country by country, no going back. Smashing one machine in Nottingham didn't stop a machine from being built in Manchester, or Birmingham, or France, Belgium, America. The tide was already unstoppable, and accelerating every single year. What eventually changed the situation? Not machine breaking. It was labor unions, collective bargaining, factory acts, child labor laws, political organizing, building new systems around the new reality. The real legacy of the Luddites isn't destruction. It's the question they force society to confront. When technology disrupts everything, who bears the cost and who decides the rules? That question echoes today, doesn't it? When software replaces a paralegal or a graphic designer, who compensates them? Who retrains them? Who decides what's actually fair for those left behind? Here's the part that always gets me. The Luddites lost the battle, but their anger eventually became the foundation of modern labor law. Their suffering wasn't wasted. It just found a better outlet. The pattern looks like this. Technology disrupts. People panic. Violence or protest occurs. Technology continues anyway. Society slowly builds new rules to manage the disruption. See the cycle? Does that pattern sound like what's happening with AI right now? Because I think we're right in the middle of it. And the key question is, what comes after the panic phase? But here's where the comparison gets really interesting and very, very different. Because stopping AI in 2026 is not just harder than stopping the Industrial Revolution. It's a fundamentally different kind of impossible. When Luddites smashed a machine in 1812, that machine was physically gone. The owner had to rebuild or replace it. The disruption, at least locally, was real and immediate. You could see the damage. Now imagine trying to smash an AI model. It lives in data centers across multiple countries. It's copied thousands of times. It's open source. Anyone in the world can download and run it freely. Even if OpenAI disappeared tomorrow, completely gone overnight, the technology wouldn't vanish with it. Google's Gemini 3.1 Pro is already deployed to millions of users across consumer and enterprise products. xAI, Elon Musk's company, has Grok as its flagship AI. Amazon, Microsoft, Meta, every major tech company has AI capabilities deeply embedded in its core infrastructure and products right now. And then there's China. You cannot fully understand this AI moment without understanding what's happening on the other side of the Pacific Ocean. This is where the picture gets truly complex. Remember DeepSeek? The Chinese startup that shocked the entire world last year by releasing a model competitive with OpenAI's best, at a tiny fraction of the cost. That was just the opening act. During China's Lunar New Year this year, it was a fireworks show of new AI models. Alibaba, ByteDance, Zhipu, Minimax, Moonshot, all releasing major upgrades within days of each other. Zhipu released GLM-5, a 744 billion parameter model for complex engineering tasks. Demand hit so fast that servers crashed. They had to invite chip partners to collaborate just to keep up. Moonshot released Kimi K2.5, a multimodal model with 1 trillion parameters that processes images, video, and coordinates networks of AI agents simultaneously. Just let that scale land for a second. According to Reuters, China's daily token consumption hit 140 trillion as of March 2026, up from 100 trillion at the end of 2025. The scale of what's happening there is almost incomprehensible. Reuters analysts noted that Chinese models have significantly narrowed the performance gap with the West in coding, reasoning, and mathematics benchmarks. This race is genuinely competitive. Right now, however, and this matters, China still trails in what researchers call frontier capabilities. The absolute top-tier models, the most powerful systems. That gap currently still exists, but it's narrowing fast. That narrowing gap is why this is now a geopolitical conflict, not just a technology competition. Advanced chips, export controls, research talent, these are the new battlefield assets of the 21st century. Think about this. Daniel Moreno Gama drove from Texas to attack one American AI company. Meanwhile, hundreds of engineers in Hangzhou and Shanghai were training the very next generation of models. The attack on OpenAI's headquarters didn't slow down Zhipu's GLM-5. It didn't pause Alibaba's Qwen release. It didn't interrupt DeepSeek's work, not by a single hour, not by a single minute. This is the brutal arithmetic of 2026. AI development is now distributed across 2 superpowers, dozens of corporations, hundreds of research labs, and millions of open-source developers worldwide. Attacking one person, when even the most famous person in AI, has about the same strategic effect as throwing a Molotov cocktail at a river to try and stop it from flowing downstream. So here's where I want to be really careful, because there's a version of this argument that sounds like, just give up and accept it. That is absolutely not what I'm saying. Please hear me out. The Luddites didn't stop the Industrial Revolution, but their anger, channeled into labor movements and political organizing, helped create the systems that made industrial capitalism livable for workers. 8-hour workdays, weekends, child labor laws, workplace safety regulations, workers' compensation. All of it came from the same spirit, but expressed through institutions instead of sledgehammers. So the question for our moment isn't, how do we stop AI? The better question is, how do we build systems that ensure AI serves people rather than just replacing and discarding them? That means asking hard questions about education. If AI can now write code, do legal research, analyze medical images, what skills should schools actually be teaching the next generation of workers? It means asking who bears the transition costs. When technology displaces entire sectors of workers, does the market sort it out automatically? Or does society, like through policy, need to intervene? It means asking about regulation, not to kill innovation, but to create real accountability. Who is responsible when an AI system makes a harmful decision that affects a real person's real life? And critically, it means asking about concentration of power. If a handful of companies control the most powerful AI systems, what does that mean for democracy? For individual freedom? For equality? These are not easy questions. There are no clean answers. But here's what I know for absolute certain. A Molotov cocktail doesn't move any of these conversations forward, not even slightly. When violence enters the debate, the story stops being about AI policy and becomes about the violence itself. The legitimate, important questions get buried under the spectacle of the attack. Moreno Gama's manifesto raised real concerns. AI's impact on human civilization, on employment, on existential risk. But his method guaranteed those concerns would be dismissed as extremism. Always, the most effective Luddites of our era are not throwing Molotov cocktails. They're the safety researchers publishing papers, the lawmakers drafting regulation, the workers organizing and demanding protection. The real question isn't, can we stop the technology? It's, can we shape the rules fast enough that the technology serves humanity rather than the other way around? That's the fight worth having. Let's bring this full circle. 1811, Northern England. Desperate workers smash textile machines in the dark, trying to hold back a tide they can feel but cannot stop or even fully see. 2026, San Francisco. A desperate young man throws a Molotov cocktail at a gate, trying to stop something so vast and distributed that no single act of violence could ever touch its core. Both moments come from the same deeply human place. Real fear, real disruption, real anxiety about what happens when a technology changes the rules faster than society can possibly adapt. And in both cases, the technology kept moving forward regardless. The Industrial Revolution didn't pause for the Luddites. The AI revolution will not pause for anyone's fury or fear or desperation. But here's what gives me genuine hope. Societies do adapt. The Industrial Revolution's chaos eventually produced labor rights, social safety nets, and institutions we still rely on every single day. The question our generation has to answer is, can we build those systems faster this time? Can we be deliberate about the rules before the disruption becomes catastrophic for those already left behind? The fear is completely real. The disruption is completely real. But the response that actually changes outcomes isn't the fire at the gate. It's the conversation that starts right after. So, what do you think? That's a wrap for today. The Luddites broke machines. Someone threw a Molotov cocktail and AI kept evolving. The question was never how to stop it, but how we choose to live with it.